tale of the deluding god of Sakyo. Once upon a time, during the reign of the emperor at Sanjo, when the royal procession was heading to Iwashimizu, there was a man named Rien, a member of the Sakyo province, who was serving as an attendant. Although he was supposed to stop at Kujo, he thought to himself, for some reason, to go all the way to a place called Chogakuji. As he traveled, he heard people saying, "There are deluding gods in this area." Rien, pondering this, continued on his way. As the sun began to set, he thought, "I should be arriving at Yamazaki no Wataru, but instead, I am strangely passing by Chogaku and heading towards the banks of the Otokuni River." Thus, he climbed the bank near Terato, and as he went past the temple, he thought, "I will cross the Otokuni River." He also crossed the Katsura River that he had previously passed. Gradually, as evening approached, he looked around but could see no one at all. Many people who had been traveling with him had disappeared. As night fell, he stayed beneath the eaves of a building called Itayado to wait for morning. When dawn broke, he thought to himself, "I am an official from Sakyo. I was supposed to stop at Kujo, yet here I am, having come this far. It seems I have strayed due to the influence of a deluding god, causing me to wander off my path." With this realization, he returned to his home in western Kyoto. Thus, encountering a deluding god is indeed a rare occurrence. This can lead one to be lost in thought and stray from the correct path. Perhaps it was the work of a fox or something similar. This is what Rien recounted. Since it is a rare occurrence, this tale has been passed down. The tale of Minamoto no Raikō and the woman of childbirth. Once upon a time, during the time of Minamoto no Raikō, who was the governor of Mino, he entered a certain district. One night, many warriors gathered together and shared various tales, mentioning, "In this land there is a place called Wataru, where a woman in childbirth resides. At night, if anyone crosses the river, she cries out, 'Please hold my child.'" One person suggested, "Let us go to that crossing right now." Then Taira no Kiyomune declared, "I too shall go and cross right now." The others replied, "While it may be possible for one man in 1,000 to face an enemy, it is unlikely that anyone would dare to cross at this moment." Kiyomune insisted, "I will go and cross safely." The others, however, stood firm, saying, "It is too risky. No one will cross." As Kiyomune faced their resistance, the 10 men who were arguing decided, "We cannot let this matter go unresolved." They gathered their armor, bows, and swords, preparing for the crossing. Kiyomune declared, "If I am unable to cross, I will take my things back." Then he said, "Is that settled?" And the others replied, "It is indeed settled. Do not delay." Kiyomune donned his armor and loaded his bow and quiver. His followers said, "How will we know what happens?" Kiyomune replied, "I will shoot an arrow from my quiver across the river, and it will land on the ground on the other side. In the morning, we will see it." After a while, 3 brave young men among the arguing group thought, "We must witness Kiyomune crossing," and they quietly ran off, thinking, "We won't let Kiyomune's horse pass us by." By then, Kiyomune had already reached the river. It was late September, and as it grew dark, Kiyomune splashed across the river. He reached the other side, and those hidden in the reeds heard him and wondered if he was drawing his bow to shoot. After a moment, he turned back and crossed again. When he did, they heard a woman's voice calling out, "Please hold me," along with the sound of a child crying. At that moment, a foul odor wafted from the riverbank. The 3 men, feeling their hair stand on end from fear, were filled with dread. They thought to themselves, "If this is how we feel, how must those crossing feel?" Kiyomune called out, "I will hold you." The woman responded, "Come closer then." As he did so, he received the child into his sleeve. The woman then insisted, "You must return my child." Kiyomune replied, "I will not return it now," and brought the child back to dry land. Upon returning to his residence, Kiyomune dismounted and faced those who had been arguing, saying, "You all made bold claims, yet I have crossed the river and brought back a child." He opened his right sleeve to reveal only a few leaves. Later, the 3 men who had secretly gone to the crossing recounted their experience. Those who had not gone felt a sense of dread. Meanwhile, those who had prepared for the crossing all took their belongings, but Kiyomune refused, stating, "It is as you say. Were there any who did not follow through?" And returned all their things. As a result, those who heard this praised Kiyomune. Some claimed that the woman was a fox pretending to be human, while others said that she had died in childbirth and had become a spirit. Thus, the story has been passed down. The tale of the three young men who stayed at the unknown hall in Suzuka Mountain. Once upon a time, three young men from Ise traveled to the province of Omi. Though they were of humble origin, they were bold in spirit. As they crossed Suzuka Mountain, they came upon an old hall where it was said there are demons, and because of this legend, no one dared to stay there. Though it lay along the path, the tales had deterred travelers. While the three men were crossing the mountain, a sudden storm darkened the sky, and they decided to take shelter under the thick leaves of the trees. As the rain continued, the day turned to dusk. One of them suggested, "Let us stay in that hall." The other two hesitated, saying, "That hall has been said to be haunted by demons. Why would we dare enter?" The man who had suggested the hall replied, "If there truly are demons, I would know of them. Besides, if we are to perish, we should not die in vain. Perhaps the stories about foxes and wild boars deceiving people are merely rumors." Encouraged by this, the two men agreed, and as night fell, they entered the hall to stay. As they sat together, sharing stories instead of sleeping, one of the men said, "I heard there was a man who died in the mountains. Shall I go and retrieve him?" The one who had initially suggested staying in the hall replied, "Why would you go for him?" The two others urged, "You should go indeed." Then the man said, "Very well, I will go." He suddenly stripped off his clothes, leaving himself bare, and ran out into the dark rain. Without stopping, another man also removed his clothing and followed the first. He stealthily approached the place where the dead man lay. There, he picked up the corpse and tossed it into the valley, then lay down in its place. Meanwhile, the first man returned and attempted to carry the body of the one who had taken its place. However, the man lying in the corpse's stead clutched him tightly. The man carrying the body exclaimed, "Let go, you corpse!" and hurried back to the hall, saying, "I have brought this body." When they entered the hall, they found that the man who had taken the place of the corpse had escaped. Upon looking back, they saw the dead body was gone and realized, "He has escaped." At that moment, the one who had taken the place of the corpse, having emerged from the bushes, began to recount what had happened. The other two, upon hearing him, said, "Is he not mad?" All three men, unwilling to be outdone, tried to assert their bravery. The one who returned with the corpse felt proud of his accomplishment, while the others felt they had done something significant as well. During the time the two were outside, the ceiling of the hall revealed various strange faces. One man drew his sword and slashed at them, scattering them in an instant. Yet he remained calm, showing that all three were indeed brave. When dawn broke, they left the hall and continued on their way to Omi. Reflecting on this tale, it seems likely that the strange faces from the ceiling were the work of fox spirits, leading to the stories of demons. After the three men left the hall peacefully, they encountered no further fears. If real demons had existed, they would have likely made their presence felt even in the garden. Thus, this tale has been passed down. The death of the Imperial Palace Guard who composed a poem in the mountains of Hitachi Province, Tale 45. Once upon a time, during the reign of Emperor Shaksh, there was an Imperial Palace Guard by the name of, perhaps he served as a kagura performer as well, for he had a remarkable talent for composing exquisite poetry. On one occasion, while traveling as an envoy for a sumo match, he made his way to the eastern provinces. When crossing a mountain called Yakeyama no Seki, which lay between Mutsu Province and Hitachi Province, he journeyed through a deep and treacherous mountain pass. As he traversed this mountain, the aforementioned Shek felt his horse become sluggish and was overcome with a profound sense of loneliness. Suddenly startled, he thought, "Ah, this must be Hitachi Province. How far I have come!" Feeling increasingly uneasy, he struck his mud shield in rhythm and composed a song known as the Hitachi Song. He recited it 2 or 3 times as if to push back his growing fear. At that moment, deep in the heart of the mountain, he heard a terrifying sound, followed by a voice exclaiming, "How delightful!" As soon as this was said, he felt a hand strike his horse, causing it to stop. The man anxiously asked his companions, "Who said that?" But they replied, "We did not hear anyone speak." His hair stood on end and filled with dread. They hurriedly passed through the area. However, after this event, the man fell ill and began to show signs of sickness. His companions, growing concerned, wondered what had caused this. That night, while resting at an inn, he passed away in his sleep. Thus, it is said that one should never compose such songs in the depths of the mountains. The mountain gods, upon hearing such beautiful compositions, become captivated and detain the singer. Upon reflecting on this, the Hitachi song must have been a traditional song of the region, and the local deity, pleased upon hearing it, took the man away. Therefore, it seems that the mountain gods, moved by his song, detained him. Such an event is truly strange. His companions were astonished and grieved, but they later returned to the capital and recounted this tale, which has since been passed down. Thus, the story has been passed down. The Tale of Konoe Guardsman Shigemasa and the Woman, Tale 1. Once upon a time, on the first day of the horse in the second month of Kisaragi, February, people from all levels of society in the capital, upper, middle, and lower, would traditionally visit the Inari Shrine. On that particular day, it so happened that an unusually large number of people came to the shrine. Among the visitors were several guardsmen from the Imperial Palace: Owari no Kanetoki, Shimotsuke no Kimiyuki, Makeda no Shigemasa, Hada no Takakazu, Makeda no Tamanari, and Karube no Kimihide. These notable men carried food pouches, fans, and sake as they made their way together to the shrine. As they approached the central shrine, they encountered a crowd of people coming and going in various directions. Amidst the crowd was a woman dressed in resplendent attire whose appearance was utterly captivating. She wore a dark outer garment over layers of clothing in hues of deep red plum and fresh green, walking with an air of elegance. As the guardsmen drew near, the woman moved away and concealed herself beneath a tree. Feeling mischievous, the men began making playful remarks and lowered their heads, attempting to catch a glimpse of her face as they passed by. Shigemasa, who had always harbored a flirtatious nature, so much so that his wife constantly rebuked him, lingered behind the others, intrigued by the woman. Approaching her, he struck up a conversation, to which the woman responded in a sweet voice, "How amusing it is to hear such flirtations from a man who surely already has someone in his life." Shigemasa replied, "Ah, my lady, though I am indeed married, my wife is no more than a monkey in appearance, and her heart is as coarse as a street vendor's. I've long thought of leaving her, but lacking someone to mend the seams of my life, I have endured. Now, upon seeing someone as lovely as you, I feel drawn to you. That is why I speak to you now." The woman asked, "Are you serious or are you merely jesting?" Shigemasa earnestly replied, "I swear by the god of this shrine that I speak the truth. For many years I've harbored this feeling, and meeting you here today must be a blessing from the god himself. I am truly delighted. But tell me, are you a widow, or where do you come from?" The woman responded, "I have no husband, and though I once served in the palace, I no longer do so due to someone's interference. That person passed away in the countryside, and for the past 3 years I've wished for someone I could depend on. I've been visiting this shrine in hopes of finding such a person. If you are sincere, I will tell you where I reside. But can I trust the words of a man already married? No, it seems too good to be true. Go on, you may leave now. I must be off myself." As the woman walked away, Shigemasa bowed low, placing his hand on his forehead, and brought his hat close to her chest, pleading, "O great god of this shrine, please help me. Do not allow such a sorrowful thing to happen to me. I swear, after this day, I will never set foot in my home again." At that moment, the woman, suddenly angry, grabbed Shigemasa's hair bun and, in a loud voice that echoed through the mountains, slapped his cheek. Shigemasa was shocked and asked, "What are you doing?" When he looked up at her face, he realized that the woman was none other than his own wife, who had disguised herself. Astonished, Shigemasa asked, "Are you mad? What has possessed you?" His wife replied, "How dare you behave like this with no sense of shame? Your fellow guardsman told me how you've been sneaking around, so I came to see for myself. I thought you were simply angry at me for suspecting you, but now I know the truth. If you dare come back to me, I swear by the god of this shrine, I will break both your legs." She then grabbed his hat and slapped him again, determined to humiliate him in front of passersby. Shigemasa, now humiliated, tried to laugh it off and replied, "Don't be so crazy. You're right, though. but his wife remained completely unyielding. Meanwhile, the other guardsmen, unaware of what was happening, had climbed up a nearby hill and were waiting. When they turned back to look for Shigemasa, they saw him standing there, locked in a struggle with the woman. Curious, they came closer and realized it was his wife beating him. They laughed and said, "Serves him right. We've been telling him for years this would happen." His wife, overhearing the guardsman's remarks, loosened her hair and said, "You see, even your friends know what kind of man you are." Shigemasa adjusted his crushed hat and quietly rejoined the group, while his wife declared, "Go back to that woman you were flirting with. If you ever come back to me, I will break your legs for sure." She then walked off, leaving him humiliated. Afterward, though Shigemasa had sworn never to return home, when he did, his wife was already lying in bed, waiting. Shigemasa sighed and said, "Well, you're still my wife, after all. That's why I went to all that trouble for you." His wife, however, scornfully replied, "You fool. You're like a blind man, unable to see the looks people give you, unable to hear their scornful laughter. Your foolishness has made you the laughingstock of everyone." Thus, his wife laughed at him once more. In time, this story spread throughout the capital, and Shigemasa became a source of amusement for the young nobles. Whenever he saw them, he would run and hide in embarrassment. His wife, after Shigemasa's death, lived on and eventually became the wife of another man. Thus, the story has been passed down.